Coming up on AEA Amplified, EAA Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board Jack Pelton offers a preview of this year's AirVenture Oshkosh.
From the Aircraft Electronics Association, this is AEA Amplified, a podcast for aviation's technology experts, with your host, Jeff Hill.
Hello and welcome to AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a mode company and a leading provider of integrated avionics systems for military and civil operators around the world. From rugged integrated flight displays to digital flight control systems for rotor and fixed-wing aircraft, Genesis has solutions to increase safety and decrease pilot workload. To learn more about how Genesis can help your customers, visit genesis-aerosystems.com. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Jeff Hill, for this April 28th, 2021 edition of AEA Amplified, and our guest today is no stranger to the AEA and the avionics community. I'm very pleased to be joined by Mr. Jack Pelton, who is named the Experimental Aircraft Association's CEO back in November of 2015, and he's also served as that organization's chairman of the board since October of 2012. So Jack, thanks so much for joining us. And first things first, EAA AirVenture Oshkosh is a go the week of July 26th through August the 1st. Is that correct?
Jeff, first of all, thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. It's been a while since we've talked. I love the first question. Yes, it is a 100% go. And I say that with the understanding that we've been doing a lot of pre-work with the local health authorities, the permitting parties, the local hospitals and health officials to understand if you're going to have this event, what do you need to consider in going forward? And at this point in time, it's green light all the way.
Well, that is definitely great news. And I know you were at Sun and Fun earlier in mid-April. AEA President Mike Adamson was down there as well. What were you hearing from everyone, the aviators, your members, the exhibitors, about getting back to Oshkosh this year?
Well, it was a good opportunity to take the pulse of all of those constituents that you mentioned by being down there. And I've been going to Sun and Fun for over 22 years straight. And Tuesday, the first day when I drove up, I was really impressed with the large number of airplanes that were on the ground, greater than what you normally have seen in the last 5 or 6 years. So that was an encouraging first sign. The drive traffic was a little lighter, but it was a clear indicator that the aviation community is more than pent-up demand of wanting to get out and get back to being with their friends and seeing what products are being offered and seeing what's new out there. And throughout the week, it was validated with the aviators saying, if we weren't here, there's no way we're going to miss Oshkosh. Everybody was asking me your first question. Now, you are having it, aren't you? They really wanted that assurance. Of course, with the occasional, and if you don't have it, we're still coming anyway. Our members are encouraged. Our volunteer corps, that many of them volunteer at Sun and Fun, are looking forward to it and committed to being there. Exhibitors, you probably, there were stories out there, and you guys may have heard this from some of your companies that participate in your organization, that some of them were not in attendance. And I got calls from some of those exhibitors in advance letting me know that they weren't going to be there and why they weren't going to be there. And part of that was they had to make the decision in the December, early January timeframe. And things have changed so much since then that they just weren't ready to make that commitment and committed against it. And in hindsight, I think many of them would say they wish they were there because it was a good crowd. The exhibits that I went by and talked to personally all had what they said were customers that were the right customers. People were not tourists. They were aviation industry people looking for new products and explanations. So it was all very, very positive in that regard.
Well, there's definitely, I'm sure, were a lot of things to learn from the Sun and Fun experience a few weeks ago, but given the enormity of AirVenture, with literally hundreds of thousands of folks typically in attendance, what kind of steps had to be taken right away when you began planning the return of the event after last year's cancellation?
It's been how would you best characterize it as continuing to plan for the unknown, but looking at it day to day as to how the situation was evolving. So after the July time frame of last year, we really buckled down and looked at making sure our association was healthy and making sure that financially we're making the right decision. So we got our house in order. Then we looked at, okay, if we're going to have AirVenture and we start making assumptions as to what the environment would look like. We first started with the pandemic is far from behind us, and we didn't even have the vaccine on the radar at that point in time. So it was, I'll tell you, in the December-January timeframe, I did not see a path to getting there. It wasn't a clear path. As things improved and as the vaccine rollout became apparent, and the team here did incredible job of planning, of saying if based on what you know and you forecast, we're still going to be in a pandemic, but hopefully a better immunity situation. What does it need to look like, and what kind of precautions should you take? And we started with our exhibits, spacing the exhibit halls out. We have 4 major hangars that exhibits are in. We took about 81 of the exhibits out and relocated them into a new tented area, not hangar, but tented area, so that we could still have the same number of exhibitors, but get them spread out in the grounds. We sat down every day and went through every event, every forum, every workshop, every banquet, and made decisions early on what we think would be acceptable or not. And the first cut was very easy and very clear. We got rid of the concert. We got rid of indoor banquets with we have 3 nights where we have banquets with 1,000 people in the Eagle Hangar. And we said, sorry, those are not going to happen. Spacing at Theater in the Woods, spacing at the forums. The air show we spread out to where we'd have instead of one show center on the north side and on the south side. So it naturally causes the crowd on the flight line to separate, to be able, and then still give them prime viewing in those 2 areas. Very well received by our members and the air show performers. So we started putting that all in place while working with Janiking, which is a national expert in disinfecting and sanitization, as to learning and understanding what protocols could be put in place. We haven't wavered on any of that. We're still not going to have the mass concert things and banquets, even if things were to change between now and July. But we think that's the right thing to do, is to err to the precautious side. And we have engaged, contracted with Janiking to do disinfecting and sanitizing at a much greater level than we have ever done on the facility site, in the restrooms, the shower houses, the eating locations, the trams, the buses, and we're going to keep that in place. No matter how it changes, we're going to stick to that. So a lot has happened, and a lot has been worked on. Very, very looked at all the pressure points. So let's talk about main admissions gate. Right now, if you go online and do advanced ticket purchases, we have the opportunity for you to get all your credentials in advance mailed to your home. And that would allow you to come already with your wristband on, your parking pass. No transactions would take place, and you just go through our express arrival area to get in. So we're looking at all of those little details and implementing and putting those in place. And I think that's been our initial response. Sun and Fun was an opportunity to really kind of look at what are we missing. What are they doing that's demonstrated that's a good best practice, and what should we be considering? Is there things we should maybe not be doing? And it validated that we're going to err to the cautious side and keep all of those precautions. We're going to have 800 hand sanitizing devices across the grounds, the exhibit halls. So you'll not be far from, I think we're all getting so used to taking a squirt and getting it all cleaned up. So we are still going to recommend masks, but we're not mandating. There is no mandate in the state of Wisconsin, and we don't want to be the enforcers. I found one of my lessons learned at Sun Fun was I was really, really impressed with, I'll call it the social decorum of people. Many had masks, many didn't have masks, but there was no tension or confrontation, or there was just general respect for, hey, whatever you need to feel comfortable with, that's what you're doing, and I'm going to respect that. And I think there was so much excitement about finally think about it, January or July of 2019 was the last aviation event, and that was ours. That's a long time ago. And so people were happy to be there, and it was, we're not going to disrupt this, and I think we'll see the same thing at AirVenture.
And once again, we are visiting with Jack Pelton, the EAA Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board here on AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a Moog company. And Jack, it sounds like things are certainly going to look a little bit different, but the feeling will be the same. It's still going to be the world's greatest aviation celebration. Is that a fair assessment?
That's exactly the goal of and the measure criteria of the event is, do we hit the mark on that? Internally, a lot of people had said, gee, feels like we're throwing a lot of stuff overboard, and is that going to cause people to come and say the experience wasn't what they normally would have expected at this event? And we've tried to pressure test that and look at it, and we said, we're still having forums, we're still having workshops, we're still doing special speakers in theater in the woods. We're going to have the fly-in theater, but people will be distanced. We're going to have all of those airplanes on the ground. We're going to have the ability for still a wonderful air show and night air show. So I think unless you were only going there for a specific banquet or a specific party, that's the only thing that's going to be missing. And if you do the math on that, that's a very small piece of the people that are there. Now, we do have to work hard on the food service. I mean, it's a long week and long days, and making sure we get that right from the health guidelines as to what and how you can serve stuff. And probably the biggest concern there is just the stacking of people in lines, which was interesting. I went to every day. I'd kind of go around lunchtime at Sun and Fun to see how that was going, and people were not congregating in big crowds. It was rather interesting. I don't know if they were spacing out their times to eat or packing their own lunches or what was going on, but it wasn't that normal big queue, which we did a heat map in 2019 with cameras and things that would show. We know people's behavior. Between 8 and 10, the front gate is a nightmare. Then people wander out through the hangars and the forums. When the air show or when lunchtime comes, all of the food venues have everybody who's watching just kind of moving right into those areas. And then when the air show starts, it's the flight line. So those are the areas we'll work on, encouraging distancing and what have you.
Well, as long as we have those short lines to get the vanilla ice cream cones at the A&W stand, everything will be just fine in my world. I could tell you that. But you did talk about the admission process being different this year and trying to avoid lines, as you mentioned. But talk a little bit more about the camping side of that. How are you addressing the campsites this year?
The camping, we're going to offer the same kind of admission experience that we are for the main gate. So there's the ability to get your credentials and get things in advance to where you can just roll right in and head to your campsite. We'll still have the same process for opening a month ahead of time, the campgrounds, the same process for first come, first serve on reserving a campsite with water and electricity on it. Very interesting when you look at back in 2020, early COVID, and everybody wondering what they can and can't do. They had guidelines out pretty early on camping. And one of the things that the CDC said is a self-contained trailer was one of the safest things you could do if you wanted to go vacation to the state parks or anything, because you've got your own restroom, your own shower, it's enclosed. So I think we caught a break there. That's a good thing. Tent camping and everybody, people are going to have to space appropriately and not crowd their folks next to them, which I think is going to be kind of a natural behavior. So we feel comfortable about that. I think the question that probably a lot of people want to know is, so what are you thinking as far as crowds? I mean, so are you really worried about camping because there's so many people going to want to come camp? We had made a lot of assumptions up until Sun and Fun on what we think the crowd sizes will be and the interest level. And Sun and Fun kind of was the genie came out of the bottle and confirmed we right now our pre-sale already for AirVenture 2021 is above 2019's level. So we think it's going to be busy. It's going to be very busy.
Well, and that is great news. And as the more and more people in the United States and around the world get vaccinated, today is April the 28th when we're visiting. 2 more months. actually, excuse me, 3 more months to go. There will be a lot more people vaccinated by then, and those are certainly great signs. And it's wonderful to hear the projected attendance and the excitement around AirVenture is building. But a lot of our listeners also belong to companies, and in particular, AEA member companies that exhibit at Oshkosh each year. So what can they expect inside the hangars?
Well, we are, again, we are not mandating masks in hangars, but we have spread out the exhibitors in the hangars with pipe and drape between the exhibits, so there's some separation, we've widened the aisles and the passageways in the hangars to free up. We think that will help. We are certainly supportive and encouraging if exhibitors want to wear masks and want their employees to be protected, and if they want to sanitize in the evening, which we will go into the hangars with the Janiking sanitization process, that will happen. And I think we're also looking at, again, it's this whole social behaviors dynamic. Before I was been completely vaccinated, I had told people I would pick and choose when I went into a hangar. I would look at crowd sizes, and everybody has their own personal comfort levels, and I would wear a mask doing that. But we'll hope that people will decide what level of comfort they have and how people will behave. I would say at Sun and Fun, some of some of your companies, they had good crowds at their booths. I mean, and people are, it's that kind of, you walk up to an exhibitor who has a mask on and you feel, well, I'll put mine on. If that's how they feel, I'll do mine. Whether I like wearing it or don't believe it or that, they still saw a lot of that. So I think the fact we've really separated across the campus where the exhibit hall is, I think we're going to be in good shape. For your member companies, I think the message we heard is qualified buyers were at Sun and Fun. The volume wasn't as high as normal, so you've got to expect that hopefully our goal is to bring them members that come that will be customers of theirs and buy something, and we hope we'll be able to deliver on that in our normal usual fashions, so it'll be successful and worth their investment.
You bet. And I know anyone who's ever attended AirVenture also recognizes that there are a number of folks who are in attendance from outside the United States. So what are you hearing about the international attendance projections for this year?
Great question, because just yesterday I got into that with a notice that Canada still has a travel restriction that's going to run through July 30th. And so we're anticipating significantly less, if any, Canadians being able to get through the border and get back in the quarantine requirements. Europe, and I say that what I read was it was defined as Europe, which has lots of definitions as to how big Europe is, that they're going to have some travel restrictions through September 30th. Right now, they're letting U.S. citizens, if you've been vaccinated and you have your vaccine card, into Europe. But I think the concern on Europeans is, while they can travel out into the U.S., will they be able to get back? And what is that going to require? So I'm openly telling people who ask the question, I'm not anticipating much in the way of international participation at all. I just think there's too many unknowns. You'll get some that know how to manage and work through that, but big concern you get here, and now how do I get back home?
Right, and there's hundreds and there's thousands of people really who make Oshkosh their vacation for the year and their annual pilgrimage. So, in a nutshell, what would you tell someone who might be considering whether or not that they take that trip to AirVenture this year?
I would say that we are doing everything we can to have a wonderful, wonderful weekend event with lots of fantastic airplanes and an air show, and trying to provide an environment that is responsible and as far as the safety. But I'm a firm believer and would always advocate it's a personal choice issue, and you need to go where you're comfortable, and we understand it. We respect it. We don't. If not, we'll see in 2022. But if you're comfortable, and again, I encourage people to get vaccinated, which I know you aren't supposed to take, but that's the only way we're going to get to a place where events can happen. So it's going to be I think they'll find it. You can always do the come and see, and if you're not comfortable because of certain things that bother you, you say that as long as it's not an inconvenience to get here. But we want to make sure you also know what we're doing, and we're gonna, whatever we say that we're gonna put in place, you're gonna find it there. We're not gonna move the goalposts come July. If we said there's no concert, that concert's not happening, and we're going to stick to that. I think that was another lesson learned from Sun and Fun.
Yeah, once again, we're visiting with Jack Pelton, the EAA CEO and chairman of the board. And AirVenture Oshkosh is an event that the AEA staff and our member companies look forward to these each year. Certainly I do. And I'm personally excited to get back to Wisconsin. Again, the event will take place July 26th through August the 1st. And as always, the AEA will be exhibiting in Hangar B at booth 2035, where we will be distributing thousands of copies of this year's AEA Pilot's Guide, as well as our July edition of Avionics News Magazine. And each year, Jack, I know you're aware of this, but we distribute thousands of those things to pilots and aircraft owners who come through the hangar and stop and visit with us and ask avionics questions. It's really a fun week. So I invite everyone to stop by and see us in Hangar B, and can't wait to see everyone there. Jack, is there anything that we missed or that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think you've hit out, first of all, your pilot's guide. It is on my desk along with my aircraft spruce catalog and a few other essentials you have to have in your hangar office. It's a great resource to have. I think you've covered it well. Please have people feel free to contact us about any specific questions or concerns or issues. We are seeing hotels booking up early, which is another good sign. But I hope we'll get to see everybody again in July. It's been way too long.
No doubt about it. It's certainly been way too long, and I can't wait to get there. That's EAA CEO and chairman of the board, Jack Pelton, here on AEA Amplified. To learn more about the EAA and this year's AirVenture Oshkosh, visit EAA.org. And before we go, let me remind our listeners of a couple of important items. Just like AirVenture, show business is back for the entire aviation industry. The 64th annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show is set for June 22nd through the 25th at the Hilton Anatole in Dallas, Texas. If you'd like to attend and have not registered yet, you can do so at aea.net/convention. In addition, the AEA has unveiled dates for 2 Connect conferences in the United States later this year. Join us September 29th and 30th at the East Connect Conference in Orlando, Florida, and October 27th and 28th. The West Connect Conference will take place in Reno, Nevada. Registration is open, along with hotel information for each of those 2-day conferences at aea.net/connect. And finally, if you are interested in pursuing professional opportunities in the avionics industry, the job listings page on the AEA website is your one-stop resource. Search the AEA's job listings and see what's on your horizon. Free resume posting is also available. Visit the jobs board at aea.net/jobs. And that's going to wrap it up for today. We hope you can join us again soon for another episode of AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a mode company. To learn more about Genesis and its full range of products, visit genesis-aerosystems.com. Until next time on AEA Amplified, so long everybody, and be safe.